Welcome to the Music Box. You've been listening to the Shirim Klezmer Orchestra, and our guests are Glenn Dixon, the clarinetist, and Karen Braunstein, the vocalist. Glenn, can you tell us, what is klezmer music?
Klezmer music is the music of Eastern European Jewish people. It's instrumental music. It was used in parties, wedding celebrations, secular, all sort of secular parties. And the word klezmer is a Yiddish word which means instrumentalist. So it's dance music. Our first song that we played was a perfect example of a dance klezmer song.
Mm-hmm. So the music is Yiddish music?
Yes. It comes from Eastern Europe, and it's Yiddish music, which means Jewish, essentially. So.
Where in Eastern Europe? Do you know?
Most of it came from the Ukraine, Romania, Poland, all these different areas.
Slavic countries.
Yeah, Slavic countries. When the Jews came into those areas, they absorbed influences from those areas and picked up songs. So a lot of it is actual Eastern European folk music that the Jews have taken and made their own and put their own expression into.
Right. Is most of the music instrumental, or do you also do vocals? Karen?
No. We do about half instrumental and half vocals. The vocals are mostly derived from folk music, and the traditional folk music was handed down from generation to generation, sung a cappella without accompaniment from mother to child, and brought from town to town.
Yeah.
And when it came to America, to make it more palatable for recording, they were adding instrumental arrangements to it, and they would have a whole orchestra behind the singer in many cases, such as the next song that we're doing.
Is this next song in Yiddish?
Yes, it is.
Can you give us a translation?
Sure. It's called Machateniste, which means mother-in-law, and it's sung by the mother of the groom, the mother of the bride to the mother of the groom, and she's reluctantly giving away her daughter, giving instructions to her Machateniste as to how to take care of her daughter, and she says, I'm giving you my daughter as a daughter-in-law. May she not grow ugly in her face. Don't wake her too early, and if you notice any faults in her, cover them up as a real mother would. To have children, it takes suffering. So if you notice that your son loves my daughter, don't be jealous. My daughter is a good, pious woman. She comes to you wearing a wig, the traditional Jewish Orthodox woman. But if you're going to be a shrewish schlock of a mother-in-law, my daughter can be your match.
Thank you.
Ihr sollt mein Tochter bringen,
tune that we just heard sounded improvised. How much of what you do is improvised?
Well, in that particular tune, there was a lot more improvisation than normal. The beginning section, the clarinet solo, about 50% of it was improvised within a certain form. And then the Freilach section, the happy, fast section, was more like we normally do, and that is, it's improvised only in the ornaments and the way we attack the notes, and the interpretation is spontaneous, a lot of it, but we are playing a specific melody, usually.
How did you learn to play this music so well?
Well, the way we learned these songs was off of old 78 RPM recordings, which were recorded starting in 1910 to 1940 approximately by Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. And they came over, and the record company saw there was a sizable population of Jewish people here. They wanted to sell their RCA Victrolas with the big horns to them. So the way to do that was to record their own music. So they started recording these folk songs and dance music, the klezmer music. And so what we did was we took these old records and transcribed the songs off the records and learned to play the way they did. So we were really playing in a very authentic style and sound.
Before we hear the next song, it's in Yiddish.
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us, how did you learn to speak Yiddish?
Well, I grew up hearing it all around me. My grandparents spoke Yiddish, and my mother speaks Yiddish. And then I also took a course in German when I was in school, so I started to understand more of the vocabulary and the grammar. And then when I started listening to these records over and over and over to translate songs and to get the feeling of it, I learned even more vocabulary.
And also you really picked up the authentic sound. Can you tell us what the next song is about?
This is called Rabbi Elimelech. This is a very well-known traditional folk song. When Rabbi Elimelech became happy, he would take off his phylacteries, his tefillin, put on his tefillin.
What is that?
In every morning, the male, after bar mitzvah, will put on phylacteries. It's something that they put on their head, and it's got scrolls, and it's part of the ritual, morning ritual, is with prayers. Anyway, Rabbi Elimelech took off his tefillin, put on his brillin, his eyeglasses, and called for his 3 fiddlers. When he became a bissel more happy, he would recite the Havdalah prayer with the sexton at Reb Naftola and call for his 3 cymbalists. And when he was overflowing, when he was kvelling with joy, he would take off his robes, his kittel, put on his hat, his hittel, and call for his 3 drummers. That's Rabbi Elimelech.
Peikel, dicke Peikel, Peikel, dicke Peikel, Peikel, bieli meile. Is gewohnt Gostok Freile. Is gewohnt Gostok Freile, bieli meile. Hat eins getan, das Kibbel, und hat dann getan, das Hibbel. Und geschieht noch die Simbel ist die Zwei. Mein Gott, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, Zwei. Mein Gott, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, Zwei. Mein Gott, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, simple, dicke, simple, toben, Zwei.
Glenn, what was that last song?
Okay, that was a song called National Hora. A hora is a dance. The opening section was actually the hora. It's in three. Dum, dum, dum. And,
Is that what most people think of as Hava Nagila?
actually, the concept of a hora has changed. That's a traditional hora, what we just did, where the trombone solo was. And now they think of Hava Nagila, which is a fast, Freilach, happy song, as a hora. So this, what we just did was a traditional hora. And it was originally recorded with violin and piano by Abe Schwartz and his daughter in the 1920s. Abe Schwartz was a very famous band leader and violinist and composer of Jewish music.
Well, most of the music was played at weddings and celebrations in the past. Where do you play your music?
Still at weddings and celebrations. The bulk of our performances are at weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties. We also do concerts at temples. We do ethnic music festivals. And we also play in clubs and radio sometimes.
You stay busy.
We try.
What is Yiddish theater, or was Yiddish theater? Does it still exist?
Well, Yiddish theater still exists. It's not what it was. Between 1900 and 1940 or so, there was a huge Yiddish theater in New York, which had its precursors in Europe, going back hundreds of years to folk plays, but it achieved a real high point in New York in the early part of this century.
Thank you, Glenn and Karen, for joining us today, and the Shirim Klezmer Orchestra for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewers, for joining us in the Music Box. We hope you'll join us again.
Wenn ich hätt a Fiedel-Spiel, stell ich vor sich a Bild von Soggy